Grandmother of missing boy Gus Lamont has been filmed holding a shotgun as she was approached by an interstate media crew on the Mid-North property where the 4-year-old vanished.
I've asked them to leave. I've asked them to leave.
Out! You are trespassing. Get out!
I'm so sorry.
Get out! Are you deaf?
Okay. I was leaving.
Get out!
I was leaving.
Shut your face and get out!
In a shocking turn of events, the grandmother of 4-year-old Gus Lamont was filmed holding a shotgun as a reporter approached the Mid-North property where the young boy vanished. Her words were sharp, her gestures urgent. "I'm asking to leave. Out. You are trespassing. Get out." 2 days ago, deep in the heart of the Australian Outback, a woman raised a weapon and sent a journalist running. But why? Was she protecting something? Or someone? Or was there a darker secret lurking beneath the surface? Gus Lamont, just 4 years old, was last seen on Saturday, September 27th, 2025. Around 5 p.m., he was playing near the family homestead, carefree and laughing. His grandmother watched as he frolicked near a small mound of dirt, his tiny footsteps leaving fleeting marks on the dry earth. By 5:30 p.m., the laughter had vanished. The boy was gone. Toys were left abandoned. Footprints disappeared into thick brush. The family searched desperately, their voices calling into the emptiness. But by midnight, no one had alerted authorities. The delay only added to the chilling sense that something wasn't right. As the first official search teams arrived, the vastness of the Outback became painfully clear. Every corner of the property was combed, yet no trace of Gus could be found. It was as if he had been swallowed by the land itself. The mystery only deepened when the grandmother's actions drew public attention. The violent outburst with the shotgun raised questions that could not be ignored. What was she hiding? And how much did the family truly know about what had happened in those crucial minutes? This was no ordinary disappearance. The unforgiving landscape, the delayed call for help, and the grandmother's alarming behavior painted a picture of a mystery far more sinister than a child simply wandering off. As the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows lengthened over the dusty Outback, the search for Gus Lamont had just begun. But already it was clear that every answer came with more questions. What really happened to Gus? And could the truth be closer than anyone dared imagine? The hunt for answers would take investigators and the community deeper into a story that would chill the heart and leave everyone questioning the people they trusted most. Just days after 4-year-old Gus Lamont vanished, the attention of investigators, the media, and the public began to shift in a direction few could ignore. The grandmother's shocking behavior captured headlines and ignited speculation. She had been filmed holding a shotgun, standing at the edge of her property, eyes blazing with anger, voice sharp and commanding. "Get out! You are trespassing. Out!" A reporter had come seeking answers, hoping to understand the tragedy unfolding in the harsh Australian Outback, but instead, he was met with hostility that bordered on fury. The question that immediately arose was impossible to shake. What was she protecting? Was it Gus, hidden somewhere nearby, or was it a secret far darker, buried in the shadows of the family home? The family's response in the hours following Gus's disappearance only fueled suspicion. It took them well past midnight to call authorities, despite knowing their son had vanished in broad daylight. And when they finally reached out to law enforcement, the release of Gus's image to the public was delayed. Every pause, every hesitation, became a thread investigators tugged at, searching for an explanation. Was it simply a lapse in judgment born of grief and shock, or was it a deliberate attempt to control the story, to prevent the truth from surfacing? With each passing hour, the suspicion grew, and investigators began to wonder whether the people closest to Gus might hold the answers, and whether those answers were being withheld intentionally. Meanwhile, the grandmother's interactions with the media continued to draw attention. She avoided direct questions, her answers deflective, often laced with an edge that suggested fear or concealment. The weapon in her hands, pointed at anyone who drew too close, became a symbol of something larger, a protective instinct turned aggressive, or perhaps a shield for something she could not and would not reveal. Observers described her as frantic yet calculating, a woman whose grief seemed inseparable from her need to control the narrative surrounding her missing grandson. Was she acting out of desperation, or was her hostility toward outsiders evidence of a darker truth lying just beneath the surface? The landscape surrounding the family homestead amplified the tension. The endless outback, with its cracked earth, sparse vegetation, and unforgiving sun, created an atmosphere of isolation. Every rustle of leaves, every movement in the brush, felt charged with possibility, either a clue or a threat. As official search teams combed the property, the grandmother's presence loomed like a shadow over their efforts. Her actions, her avoidance of the media, her refusal to engage openly, her defensive outbursts, added a psychological layer to the physical challenge of the search. Investigators had to consider not just what the land was hiding, but what secrets might be held by those tasked with protecting the child. As hours turned into days, the sense of unease deepened. Neighbors whispered about inconsistencies in the family's story. Volunteers noted the grandmother's behavior both before and after the disappearance as strange and erratic. Questions piled up faster than answers could be found. Why had she allowed Gus to play unsupervised for so long? Why had she reacted so violently toward anyone seeking information? Could her actions be explained by grief alone, or did they point to a deliberate effort to obscure the truth? Investigators were forced to grapple with a chilling reality. The disappearance of Gus Lamont might not be a simple accident. The delayed call for help, the refusal to engage with media, and the grandmother's defensive aggression created a tangled web of suspicion that was impossible to ignore. As authorities sifted through the timeline of that fateful afternoon, they realized that the case was no longer just about a missing child. It was about a family and the secrets that family might be hiding. Every interaction, every pause, every burst of anger became a potential clue. And while the search teams combed the harsh, unyielding terrain of the outback, the human element of the case, fear, secrecy, and suspicion, loomed just as large as the vast, desolate landscape. The question hanging over the entire investigation was unavoidable. Could the answers to Gus's disappearance lie not in the scrubland or the distant horizon, but in the actions and choices of those who should have been keeping him safe? And as the days passed, one thought settled heavily over the investigators and the public alike. The truth was close, but hidden. Whether it was buried in the land or in the heart of the family remained uncertain. Every unanswered question, every delayed action, only deepened the mystery.
As the hours turned into days, the search for Gus Lamont escalated into an operation of unprecedented scale. Ground teams combed the sprawling property, scanning every mound, every scrub, every shadow for even the faintest clue. Volunteers joined the effort, their boots kicking up clouds of red dust as they moved tirelessly across the unforgiving landscape. But the more they searched, the more the outback seemed to swallow every trace of the little boy. No footprints, no discarded toys, no sign of life, just an endless stretch of barren land, harsh and unyielding, as though the earth itself was conspiring to keep its secrets. The authorities quickly realized that conventional methods would not be enough. Drones hummed overhead, their cameras sweeping the property from every angle. Helicopters cut through the still air, searchlights piercing the gathering dusk, illuminating areas too dangerous or remote for those on foot. Even with technology on their side, the searchers were met with frustration at every turn. The terrain was deceptive. Small mounds of dirt that could conceal a child, thick brush that could hide a footprint, gullies and depressions that made tracking almost impossible. Every lead seemed to dissolve into nothing. The Australian Defence Force was called in to provide additional manpower and expertise. Soldiers in full fatigues moved systematically across the rough terrain, their movements precise, methodical, and relentless. Helicopters buzzed overhead, while thermal cameras scanned for heat signatures that might indicate Gus's presence. The property covered hundreds of kilometres, rough and isolated, and the search team soon realised the enormity of the challenge before them. Every day was a battle against time, heat, and the harsh, unforgiving wilderness. In a final, desperate attempt, authorities turned their attention to a local dam, a massive body of still water that had long stood as a silent witness to the surrounding land. Perhaps it held a clue, a hidden truth that the Outback had not revealed. By October 31, 2025, the dam had become the focal point of a last-ditch effort. Heavy machinery roared to life, and over 3.2 million litres of water were drained, gushing away as searchers watched, hearts pounding, hoping for some sign of Gus. The murky depths revealed nothing, not a toy, not a footprint, not even a scrap of clothing. The emptiness was deafening. The final hope seemed to slip further from their grasp, leaving only questions and fear in its place. Throughout this relentless search, the grandmother's behaviour continued to draw scrutiny. While the teams combed every inch of land, she remained defensive, avoiding questions and keeping outsiders at a distance. Her earlier shotgun incident had already sent ripples through the media, and now, as the search reached its most desperate phase, her actions only intensified suspicion. Was she simply protecting her family from intrusion, or was there a secret she was determined to keep hidden from the world? Every glance, every word, every hesitation added another layer of tension to the already grim situation. Despite the enormous human and technological effort, the vastness of the Outback seemed to mock them. The land offered no clues, no answers, and no mercy. Volunteers and authorities alike began to feel the weight of hopelessness, exhaustion etched into their faces as the days stretched on. The sun beat down relentlessly, the wind kicked up dust and debris, and every searcher knew that time was slipping away. The possibility that Gus could still be found alive grew slimmer with each passing day, leaving investigators and the public to grapple with the chilling reality that something far worse might have occurred. Every failed lead, every empty corner, every trace that dissolved into dust only deepened the mystery. The search for Gus Lamont had become more than a race against time. It had become a psychological battle against despair, against the unknown, against a wilderness that seemed to swallow not only the child but the hope of finding him. And as search teams prepared to tackle yet another sector of the land, one thought lingered in every mind. Was Gus lost to the Outback, or was there something, or someone, deliberately keeping him from being found? With each passing day, the tension and suspicion grew. The once clear mission of locating a missing child had become a labyrinth of uncertainty. The Outback's vastness was not just a physical obstacle, it was a psychological one. The relentless pursuit, the draining of the dam, the involvement of military personnel, and the endless combing of land had yet to reveal a single clue. And in the midst of it all, the grandmother's actions continued to cast a shadow over the search, leaving everyone to wonder if the answers were not hidden in the wilderness at all, but within the walls of the home that Gus had vanished from. As the days of the search for Gus Lamont stretched into weeks, the investigation began to take a darker turn. What had started as a frantic effort to locate a missing child slowly morphed into a tangled web of suspicion, doubt, and unanswered questions. Police were forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. Despite an exhaustive search of the Outback, drones, helicopters, volunteers, and even the Australian Defence Force scouring hundreds of kilometres, there was still no trace of Gus, no footprints, no clothing, no toys. The Outback had swallowed every clue, leaving the question, could something more sinister be at play? The focus inevitably shifted to those closest to Gus. The grandmother, whose shocking shotgun outburst had captured public attention, became the center of speculation. Why had she chased away reporters? Why had she been so defensive, so determined to control the narrative of her grandson's disappearance? Observers began to wonder if grief alone could explain her behavior, or if there was a hidden truth she was desperate to keep buried. Every hesitation, every evasive answer, every act of hostility toward outsiders added to the growing cloud of suspicion. Could the answers to Gus's disappearance lie not in the wilderness, but in the home he had vanished from? Family actions, or inactions, also drew scrutiny. Delayed calls to authorities, the slow release of Gus's photograph, and a pattern of avoiding public attention all raised red flags for investigators and the media alike. It was as though someone was attempting to keep control over a narrative that should have been shared immediately with the world. The longer the search continued without results, the more investigators considered the possibility that Gus had never left the property at all. Could the child have been hidden, perhaps by someone he trusted most? The thought was almost unbearable, yet it could no longer be ignored. As speculation grew, new theories emerged. Some suggested that the grandmother might have been protecting a dark secret from her own past. Others proposed that a family member or someone close to the family could have played a role in Gus's disappearance. Rumours swirled through the small communities nearby, whispers of old grudges, arguments, and strange behaviour, all magnified by fear and desperation. Every unanswered question seemed to point back to the family, the people who should have been Gus's greatest protection, but whose actions now raised doubt and fear. Investigators, volunteers, and journalists alike began to see a pattern of concealment that could not be ignored. The grandmother's protective instincts had crossed into aggression, her sorrow entangled with suspicion, and her behaviour became a puzzle within the puzzle of Gus's disappearance. Even those who had initially assumed the worst, an accident in the unforgiving Outback, began to consider that perhaps someone close to Gus knew more than they were willing to admit. Could this be why the search teams had been met with so many obstacles, both physical and psychological? The haunting reality was that the disappearance of Gus Lamont was no longer a simple missing child case. It had become a story of secrets, distrust, and the fragile boundaries between grief and guilt. Police had begun to explore the possibility of foul play, though no concrete evidence had yet surfaced. And still, the grandmother's earlier shotgun incident loomed large, raising a chilling question. What was she hiding, and could it hold the key to finding Gus, or understanding what had truly happened that afternoon? With each passing day, the pressure mounted. The once hopeful mission of rescuing a lost child now carried a dark undertone, as theories of concealment and family complicity grew harder to ignore. The Outback, while vast and impenetrable, seemed almost secondary to the enigma within the family itself. The more investigators probed, the more complicated the case became. The question that hung over everyone involved was both simple and terrifying. Could the answers to Gus Lamont's disappearance be closer than anyone realized, hidden in the very hands of those who should have been keeping him safe? And so, as the search expanded, the investigation deepened, and suspicion thickened like the dust in the Outback air. One fact remained undeniable. The mystery was no longer just about a missing child. It had become a story of secrets, potential betrayal, and darkness that could hide behind even the most familiar faces. The search for Gus Lamont was not merely a fight against time and terrain, it had become a struggle to uncover the truth that someone, somewhere, might desperately want to keep hidden. As the search for Gus Lamont stretched into November 2025, the case remained shrouded in uncertainty. Despite the tireless efforts of police, volunteers, and even the Australian Defence Force, no trace of the 4-year-old had been found. Every search, every drone sweep, every drain of water from the dam had yielded only emptiness. The Outback, vast, harsh, and unforgiving, had swallowed the boy, or at least it seemed to have. Yet the lingering questions were louder than the silence of the land. What had happened to Gus? And could the answers lie not in the wilderness, but in the actions, choices, or secrets of those closest to him? The grandmother's behaviour remained a focal point of suspicion. Her earlier shotgun outburst, evasive answers, and defensive posture toward the media left many questioning her role. Was she simply grieving, overwhelmed by loss, or was there something darker she was trying to conceal? As investigators revisited timelines, communications, and family interactions, it became clear that the human element of the case, fear, secrecy, and mistrust, was as complex and impenetrable as the Outback itself. The tragedy of a missing child had become entwined with mystery, suspicion, and unanswered questions that haunted the public and authorities alike. But beyond the questions, Gus Lamont's disappearance also highlights a critical issue: the vulnerability of children in isolated environments. In rural and remote areas, children can be at heightened risk due to lack of supervision, delayed emergency response, or limited access to resources. Cases like Gus's remind communities and authorities alike that prevention, vigilance, and rapid response are essential. While the Outback may have hidden Gus, society must ask itself how such tragedies can be prevented in the first place. Advocacy, awareness, and community engagement are vital tools in preventing similar tragedies. Educational programs for parents and caregivers can provide crucial guidance on child safety, especially in isolated areas. Community watch initiatives, safe spaces for children, and strong local networks create environments where children are protected and adults are prepared to respond quickly to emergencies. Public awareness campaigns and better reporting systems ensure that the disappearance of a child is met with immediate action rather than delay. Gus's story serves as a stark reminder that no child should be left vulnerable, whether in a bustling city or the remote expanse of the Outback. And yet, despite the lessons, the unanswered questions remain. Was Gus Lamont the victim of an accident, swallowed by the unforgiving landscape? Or was something more sinister at play, hidden behind the walls of the family home or within the actions of those who should have kept him safe? The case challenges investigators, the media, and the public to consider the uncomfortable possibilities. Each theory adds weight to the haunting truth. Sometimes the most perplexing mysteries lie not in the wilderness, but within human choices, secrets, and fears. As of now, the search continues, not only for Gus, but for answers. Families, volunteers, and authorities remain vigilant, hoping for any sign that might bring closure. Gus Lamont's disappearance is a chilling reminder of the fragility of life, the power of secrecy, and the critical importance of protecting our children. And while the truth may remain buried in the dust of the Outback, the questions, the lessons, and the call for vigilance echo far beyond the vast red horizon. The story of Gus Lamont is more than a missing child case. It is a call to action, a reminder that society must do everything in its power to protect the most vulnerable. And until Gus is found, or the truth revealed, the mystery will continue to haunt the hearts and minds of all who followed the search, leaving an indelible mark on the community and the nation alike.